Today will be the masterclass for Lulu. So first we'll just we'll tackle some like basic stuff for the champion, like kind of to help like people understand like what the strengths are, the weaknesses are, rune setups, itemization, and then we'll just jump into. Actually, I'm gonna start adding this new thing since I've been doing like coaching lessons for a lot of people who play like a lot of the champions, and I'll actually talk about like common mistakes done by lower elo players so that people can be like more self-aware of like what they're maybe making mistakes on when it comes to playing Lulu.
Warning, warning, warning.
So yeah, I mean we'll first just jump into the rune setup, which is kind of pretty it's pretty basic, I would say, in most cases, which is just gonna be Guardian pretty much every time with the sorcery tree secondary, and basically to help like understand this and kind of like let people know why you do this. Most of Lulu's strength is the fact that she is a very defensive anti-all-in kind of champion, and actually she struggles a lot with getting poked, and so the majority of the time Guardian helps deal with both all-in and poke. So that's the reason why like Guardian is a really good rune for us, just because of the fact that it can mitigate not only like the Alistars and Leonas, but it also mitigates like poke really well with your shields and just being generally next to people. So that's why we pretty much always take the Guardian rune, and then kind of off of that you can kind of run shield bash if you feel like you're going to get all into a lot and you're going to shield yourself, but the majority of the time Font of Life is usually just the best because you have 3 of your 4 spells that's slow, so the extra healing is just good stat padding, and we always like that in that case. Then after that is conditioning. The reason why we go conditioning over bone plating is bone plating is usually a fake rune in bottom lane. It's actually like a pretty common rune to take, but like it actually gets splashed off by random poke damage or like a different person targeting you pretty frequently. On top of that, bone plating is only up for 1.5 seconds, so there's almost 100% chance that bone plating doesn't even absorb 3 spells, even if someone's all in you at the same time. So it's just better to go conditioning in pretty much all the cases, because after the 12 minutes and it unlocks, it just makes you way tankier. This also means that, because you're a short range champion, it's just so much harder for you to die. And that's kind of like one of the main complaints of this champion is, she's short range. Her polymorph, like a lot of her spells are relatively close and up and personal, so making sure that we don't die or anything like that is really important. And then next we'll move over to just kind of pairing with the theme, which is Overgrowth, which gives us extra HP just while minions are dying, and as the game goes on, this usually becomes about 400 HP, which is 400 gold worth of HP, which is about 150 HP. So that's actually really good in terms of stat padding, just to make yourself durable. Pretty common question a lot of people have though is why don't we take Revitalize? For those who don't know, Revitalize only affects healing and shielding, which means your ultimate does not count for this. So it only affects your E. Yeah, your ulti is actually categorized in its own specialized category called bonus health that's not available to any other champion or character in the game. That's why it also goes through, minus healing, like the Mortal Strike effects, like, Executioners and such. So because of that, Revitalize only affects your E, and honestly 5% is pretty low on the totem pole of stat value, so we just prefer the Overgrowth for ourselves. Then after that, we just go Sorcery, because Transcendence is just good ability haste, which is what we always want on the character, and Mana Flow kind of solves like a lot of your mana problems that this champion tends to run into. And a secondary option you can have is something like Biscuits, but basically after 6 minutes, you're going to make yourself a significantly weaker champion, and I would say in most cases, Lulu wants to get out of laning phase and show up to the team fights, so that's why I recommend Sorcery pretty much always. Then after that, we just run Ability Haste, Adaptive, and Armor. You can change this to a second Armor piece or a Magic Resist piece if you need more like durability and tankiness. Maybe there's a lot of poke in your lane, a lot of magic damage, etc. It's not unreasonable to take this. The ability power isn't like necessary for you to get. And then obviously like I can talk about the summon Airy, but to be completely honest with you, there's almost never a game where I take this anymore. I think this rune for the most part is a noob trap. It makes all of your shielding and dealing with front-loaded damage way weaker, and all you're really getting in return is a little bit more damage on your spells and abilities. This is really only a rune I would suggest you take if you basically are trying to crush a lane. Other than that, I don't recommend taking it just because yeah, like I said before, the area is not really going to block that much extra damage, and it's really not going to give you that much more extra damage. So you have to play really aggro and really get a lot of lane value out of this rune to make it worthwhile. Whereas the Guardian is more universal, you know, it works a lot better for everything, and, you know, because it's universal, we can just take it in all of our matchups, and it's still, like, good, consistent, and powerful. Whereas Summon Area, you really need to be getting kills in lane or having huge amounts of pressure swing for this to be a good rune page. Otherwise, I don't recommend it. Any questions about runes or anything like that before I move to the next part?
Now the only thing maybe is Font of Life also should trigger Aurelius and what's the other, Moonstone, right?
Yeah, so Font of Life has some interesting interactions where basically if you're proccing it, it counts as you healing and shielding your teammate. So anything that procs off of healing or shielding your teammate will proc it. Yeah, so Font of Life, you know, you glitter lance somebody, your teammate hits them, then they heal. That counts as you healing them, which means it procs things like Staff of Flowing Water, Shurelias, and Ardent Sensor. All those things that, you know, proc off of that will automatically get empowered by that. It doesn't heal for a lot, but it actually adds up a lot. It's pretty common for me to see, you know, between 500 and 1500 healing from Font of Life. So it actually has, like, pretty good numbers, and especially because of the fact that you'll usually be taking Overgrowth with it, you'll actually have, like, a decent amount of HP to power this up. And this isn't limited by being, like, ranged or melee, too, so it's just based on your max HP. So yeah, that's why we also take Font of Life in most cases. You can opt into Demolish if you think you're going to, like, you know, push the lane a lot. You have, like, a really winning lane. But in general, I just recommend Font of Life because, like I said before, her theme really is laning, or out of laning phase stuff. You know, team fighting, shielding, healing, you know, keeping people alive, that one item power spike, etc. So that's kind of what we're looking for when it comes to the champion in general. Okay, then we'll move towards you know, Lulu's strengths. So, hey, you got any ideas for, like, you know, listings for Lulu's strengths, Foot?
First of all, I think it's one of the easier support champions because you have only one skill shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. Easy to pick up for sure. That's why she's definitely one of my S tiers for sure.
I think her numbers are at the moment pretty good.
Strong numbers. Especially her ultimate is not affected, right, by healing reduction. So that makes her, you know, her numbers on her ulti really, really good.
And I think you can play reasonably aggressive in laning matchups where with other enchanters you would have to be more cautious because of the threat of an all-in.
Yeah, she has, like, good tools to deal with basically all of the tank supports. And in fact, honestly, I would say that when I'm playing Lulu, I'm more inclined to pick her if I'm playing against things that want all-in. Because, you know, their only condition is to all-in you, which even makes it easier for you to operate your character. Yeah, I mean, this pretty much covers it, you know. Almost all of her, basically all of her abilities are not really skill shots, so she's actually quite easy to pick up in terms of, you know, mechanical proficiency stuff. The fact that her ultimate skips over minus healing reduction is really, really helpful. So, like, even when people build Serpent's Fang against you as Lulu, it's not really that big of a deal. You know, it's not really that big of a deal because, as we already established with the Revitalize conversation, we don't really care about her shield that much. It's obviously important, but really a lot of Lulu's strength is, you know, comes from all of her peeling, right? She's basically 3 crowd control spells. Her ultimate, her W, and her Q are all forms of crowd control. And yeah, so, like, she's really, really good right now. I would also add to strengths, lots of players playing melee champions right now. Because of this, you know, it kind of covers a lot of her weaknesses, which we'll go over in just a minute. But yeah, like, a lot of people are already picking a lot of melee type champions, so it's actually just way easier for you to, you know, slot her in. Whereas sometimes in some metas, she doesn't fit nearly as well, nearly as good. And then I would also say a lot of powerful picks are her great lane partners. So, like, listing that would be like Kog'Maw, Jinx, and Vayne. Vayne to a lesser extent, but, like, Kog'Maw and Jinx are both really common and, like, pretty prevalent picks that people are picking right now, especially with Lulu. So the fact that she, you know, she has good lane partners, you know, crit ADCs are really, really good right now. makes her stronger. She likes champions that stack attack speed and attack a lot, in quick succession, and these kinds of champions do that very well. Okay, so next, moving over to weaknesses. So, any weaknesses that you can think of right now, Foot?
A low range.
Yeah, that's fair. She's got low range. Yeah. So, what does that? What with low range makes? What is she weak to because she has low range?
She can be outpoked quite easily.
Yeah. So, does poorly against poke, which kind of builds into this concept right here, which is a lot of players are playing a lot of melee champions. So a lot of the time you don't encounter nearly as many scenarios where your weaknesses are abused. Any other things?
I think most of the time when I'm playing her, it's like lacking impact. I feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's
more a bit of individual impact, right? Yeah, you're a little bit reliant on your teammates, powering them up, keeping them alive, etc.
And also, even if you hit your polymorph, it's not like it's that of a game changer as compared to other skill shots that are hitting.
Okay.
Like an army bubble or something like that.
And then one other problem she can have is does poorly with wrong ADCs. So does bad with like Jhin, Ezreal, right? Spellcaster ADCs don't do very well with her. Varus to a lesser extent. With poke. So like yeah, some of her great strengths is like she does a really good job of being incredibly powerful with her great lane partners, the attack speed, on hit kind of champions, but she does quite poorly with basically spellcasters. Spellcaster ADCs are really, really, really not what you want to see when you play this champion. So you can have you can pick Lulu and she can be paired with your teammate goes Ezreal and you're like, oh god, Ezreal, that's so bad for us, right? So yeah, definitely a concern that you can definitely have when it comes to those kinds of things. All right, and then let's talk about itemization real quick. It's actually pretty linear for the most part. We want to go Lucidity Boots like pretty much ASAP, and then we still go Shurilias despite nerfs because this allows you to E your teammate and never have to W them for movement speed. So you can poly people who jump in. So yeah, that's like the main reason why Shurilias is still really great. Even though the on use is reduced a lot, the passive the passive movement speed you get from shielding your teammates is basically still there. So because of that, you're just not forced into forced into always having to use your W on your teammates, and then you can save it for polymorphing those people coming in. So that's why Shurilias is still the best. I don't usually recommend Moonstone as of right now, just because it feels like even when Moonstone does a decent amount of healing, really a lot of Lulu's strength, as we've kind of already established, is her peeling, right? You're able to stop your opponents from getting in, CC them immediately. It's just really, really good in that sense. So not being able to force to do that is really good. Then after that, you kind of have a lot of options. Your second option is really, really open. So you can go Ardent if your ADC is doing well, / have multiple auto attackers. You can go Redemption if they have lots of diving champions and you want to survive. And then you can go Staff of Flowing Water if you have lots of spellcasters / your ADC is doing badly. And then the other one is Cosmic Drive if nothing applies. So that's kind of how our itemization goes. There's a lot of different ones, just dependent on whatever you're trying to get for your character. Meeting those conditions is really just understanding those conditions and meeting them is really important. A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I tend to lean towards the Cosmic Drive just because it's universally good. CDR is never a bad stat on this champion, so just being able to cycle through all of your spells is going to be incredibly helpful for you. So in most cases where you feel like you can't answer the question, it's either going to be Redemption or Cosmic Drive. But yeah, if your AD carry is doing good, Ardent's definitely going to be our premium. And then you kind of build out the rest of these items just depending on whatever you need next. So maybe in games where my AD carry does really well, I get him Ardent. And then I feel like, okay, I don't really care about my spellcasters, and I'll get Cosmic Drive third. But yeah, that pretty much covers itemization. Do you have any questions or anything like that, Foot, over itemization?
Yeah, 3. What about Putrefier? Do you think it's good on Lulu?
Oh, the Putrefier?
Yeah.
Yeah, Putrefier. If they have 2+ super healing champions, is pretty much the condition for it. One of the drawbacks of going Putrefier obviously is that, well, I guess since you're taking Font of Life, you can actually, when you complete Putrefier, get healing Putrefier stacks from that. The main thing is you need to have a lot of healers for this to be a good item, because a lot of times by the time you're getting this second item, most of the time your teammates have healing reduction. If your teammates don't have healing reduction, then yeah, this is definitely a good item to build, even maybe as a second item if they have a lot of healing champions.
And then Mikhail's Crucible.
So the only time really I go Mikhail's nowadays is if they have lots of CC / I need magic resist. So basically one of the times that I suggested Mikhail's to actually someone doing a Lulu game was because they said, oh, there was like an Evelyn that was killing people and killing me over and over again. So if there's a lot of CC on the enemy team, or you just need magic resist, Mikhail's is probably going to be your best. Even though bonus healing and shielding isn't like the greatest stat for your champion, it's not the end of the world. And then, you know, obviously getting the extra MR is really, really powerful for this item. Plus, you can actually use it for just the heal if you want to. It heals for between 100 and 200. It's not like a lot, but you can use it for its heal effect if there's not like a lot of CC or not CC that you care about in the game. This one is like built almost never though. The main reason why I would present that is if there's so much CC that you need to build Mikhail's, most of the time you should just tell your AD carry, hey, you should take cleanse. And then cleanse will usually, you know, because you cleanse at the start of the game, whereas Mikhail's is your second item. Being able to, you know, have them take cleanse and you not have to build like an item like Mikhail's is pretty important. Because we definitely don't want to be rushing it as our first item. And unfortunately, like, since the mythic item changes, Mikhail's biggest strength was when you rushed it. Like, when you got it as a first item, because obviously you're getting it as soon as possible to break CC, etc. And CC is strongest at the start of, like, the early game. And so, yeah, I pretty much find myself almost never building Mikhail's just because of the fact that my ADC should just take cleanse if there's that much CC. So like Leona Varus is like a very good example of that. Any other questions?
Yeah, one last question.
Sure.
About Moonstone. If you find yourself in a situation of having picked a Lulu into a team that hardly has any divers but mostly poke, would you still go Shurilias, or is Moonstone an option there?
So if you have like a lot of champions that like heal or survive for a long period of time, Moonstone is not bad. And it never really is bad. It's basically just about adjusting your playstyle. So the main reason obviously why Shirley is as good is because you just don't have to use W on your teammate to give them the movement speed, right? Which is actually a pretty important like mechanic because we want to almost always use our polymorph to CC players. It's actually very rare for you to be Wing your teammates, to be completely honest with you. So when you buy Moonstone, you lose that mechanic, right? You're going to trade off that mechanic for healing. So you need to have like a lot of tanky champions that are going to run into each other for it to be valuable. If you can't basically tell me that like there are a lot of healing champions in your game, then the item is going to be a lot worse. Also, as an aside, if you identify in the champion select that you decide that you want to build Moonstone, and I would probably say that it's like it's like 75-25. Like 75% of the games you should probably be still building Shurilias, but there's probably about 25% of the games where Moonstone, it's not bad. Like you can make a reason for it. But like if you do decide to do that, make sure you take Revitalize. Because then obviously, right, we have the Moonstone healing to go with it. And so that amplifies the effectiveness of everything. Also, as an aside, if you decide to go Moonstone and you take Revitalize, that makes Redemption probably the second best item in the game for you. Because Redemption receives bonus healing and shielding from your stats, right? So that makes Redemption just infinitely better because you're going to be piloting with you know, 35 up to 35%, maybe even 40% with revitalizes, bonus healing and shielding. I think I rarely build Moonstone though. It's like pretty rare for me, just because of the play pattern of, you know, being able to Shurelya's reposition and shield and give your teammate the movement speed. But like I said before, yeah, you can definitely find games where Moonstone is really good. Oh, and if Redemption isn't what you build, then you probably almost always are building Putrefier. Those are kind of like how your linear path is for that. I guess a good way to like look at it too, Foot, is that you build Shurelya's if you have like a really strong carry. Like your AD carry is, you know, someone that you want to power up a lot. Oh, Twitch is actually another one that I can add to this. So Twitch. So like if it's a Kog'Maw, Jinx, Twitch, Lulu, then yeah, this is good. Maybe you just play a game where you just don't have the good ADCs, right? You have a Jhin, you have an Ezreal, you have a Pokevarys, etc. You're like, all right, my AD carry is, you know, not my focal point. Then yeah, sure, you can totally go Moonstone, and that also will allow you to go the rest of these items, etc. I want to go over common mistakes done by lower elo players. So let's talk about a couple of them just real quick that I've seen like pretty commonly. Leveling E level 1 and just shielding. So this is a common like mistake I see pretty often, like when I do a lot of my classes, is that Lulus will just level E and shield damage. The reason why this is a mistake is because you should pretty much always be going Q. It lets you push the wave and harass. Also, when you hit people with it, the minions don't chase you. So, like when you walk up and you E somebody, the minions will turn and hit you immediately, which makes like most of your trades quite bad. So in most cases, you kind of want to stay away from going E level 1 because it's only good for shielding. The only time I really go E is if I am getting pushed in the entire time and I need to just like stop incoming damage. Maybe they get to lane first and just like shove or whatever. But yeah, in most cases, you're gonna definitely want to be just, you know, pushing the lane, getting that harass off, and the Q is gonna just be way more versatile for all of that. Whereas if you go E, you're just gonna get pushed in a lot, and it relinquishes a ton of pressure. Next, which is Lulus will commonly, in team fights, run in to try to polymorph people and then die. This is like a common positional problem that I've seen like pretty often, which is you know, if you move too far in, it's easy for you to get jumped on. Remember what we talked about originally, right? Which is that Lulu's a short range champion. And in most cases, you're still like kind of squishy even if you take the resolve tree, unless you're building Locket. So, yeah, it's pretty common for me to see like a lot of mispositioning where people run in and try to just polymorph people. So this is kind of like one of the common things I see in team fights, just in general when it comes to that. And then the final thing is people don't realize your ultimate is a 7-second slow. So this is like the kind of final part. So when it comes to like, you know, situations where you're fighting, you know, your teammates jumped in, you're looking to kill people. Basically, a lot of people do not treat the Lulu ultimate as a CC. And because of that, they lose a lot of kill opportunities, or they don't Lulu ult like people when they engage, so that they can continuously chase people down. So a lot of people, when I read it out to them, they're like, whoa, I didn't realize the Lulu ult was a 7-second 30% slow. So just realizing that so that they can process it, put it into their mind, and you know, use it as a tool when their teammates are catching enemy players. Because that's one of the main benefits of a champion like Lulu in general, is that despite being an enchanter, she actually helps engage pretty well when your teammates get good looks with the Lulu ultimate, you know, CCing people, knocking them up, slowing them down, etc. So those are kind of like the most common things that I see as a problem when it comes to using their ultimates. Okay, so next, you know, well, you get the pick of the litter, Foot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do at least one laning phase breakdown and then team fight breakdowns, and then if we have time, we'll go for a second one. So you can go for whatever one you want. We have a Lulu Caitlyn versus Morgana Jinx. We have a Draven Lulu versus a Bard Ezreal, and then we have a Lulu Twitch versus a Draven Swain. So which lane phase would you like us to go over first?
Yeah, I think this third one is the spiciest one.
The third one?
Yeah.
This one right here, Lulu Twitch versus Draven Swain. All right, cool. Then we'll do this one. We'll do some team fight breakdowns, and then we'll kind of see where we're at time-wise, and if there is more time, I'll let you pick one more of them. Cool. Then we will just jump right into it and immediately start talking about, Lulu Twitch versus Swain Draven. Pretty hard matchup, right? One thing to note, too, in this laning phase is we're even at a bigger disadvantage, which is that I have to go Summoner Heal, and he is taking Cleanse, because there's a Twisted Fate in this game. So I told him to take Cleanse, and I took Heal. So actually, this is great. This is a great piece of information, too, when you're playing with people. If there's a lot of CC that you're worried about, as a Lulu, remember, we just want to get through laning phase and get to the team fight stage. So it's totally fine for you to do this, where, you take the heal and your AD carry takes Cleanse. I do know that, like... even AD carries and masters and stuff like that forget they have Cleanse and like use it like it's heal, so I understand why some people would be apprehensive to it, but it is an option on the table, especially if you're like duo with someone. Let's just jump right into it. And as you can see right here, we have gone for the Q level 1. And we're gonna walk into lane, and this is also why the Q is so good. So you can kind of see immediately as we're trading, the Q just slows for so long. My Twitch doesn't walk far enough in, so I have to end up giving ground, and we're just trading right here. And this is why the Q is really, really helpful, by the way, is as you can see right here, I can just trade from max distance and scoot back. Plus, it's a 2.5 second, 80% slow at level 1. It doesn't require any extra points into it either. So that's why I tell people to go Q level 1, because you can kind of see in these trades, I'm able to get so many extra auto attacks in because I'm queuing. And like right here, for example, you see how like I auto, and I'm actually out of auto range right now, but you can queue and then, people can walk into your queue. So you can lead people into your queue. So just because of like the versatility of using the ability, it makes it just so powerful right here. And you can see right here, I just get so many extra auto attacks on the opponents because of the fact that, we're just able to queue them over and over again. And then we pull them into the fight, and we just score a 2v2 kill very, very easily. And the jungler comes down here and just kind of cleans up all of that. But if I had gone E instead, I would have never been able to fight back at all on this enemy lane because of the fact that I wouldn't be slowing them, I wouldn't be CCing them, I wouldn't be able to pressure them and such. And, because of the trade and because of my flash early, we're actually able to get all of their summoners out at the same time. And then after that, we're just using our Q to push the wave. So that's also another thing, too. If you encounter maybe a scenario where you're not trading nearly as much, you don't feel like you can get a poke off. If you can't get the poke off in laning phase, you can always just throw your Q into the minion wave itself and guarantee yourself the push. And if you're guaranteeing the push, then, you're going to be able to not get pushed under the turret. Remember one thing that we did talk about with, problem with Lulu is that she's kind of susceptible to being poked, right? And so getting pushed under the turret is a really huge problem that you can run into in that sense. Now, for the next, minute or so, the Twitch is actually going to go mid and look for a kill right now. So we're going to kind of just, skip that part of the lane phase because I'm just chilling right now. And now the wave is kind of pushing back to us anyway. And a lot of this is systemic. So because of the fact that we were able to create pressure early and trade on them, now the wave is pushing into us, and it does have an opportunity to set up a kill, but the enemy jungler is actually here, so we're just going to catch the wave under the turret, and I'm just walking over here to make sure that, he doesn't die. Making sure he gets shielded and just scoot back, glitter lance anyone that's coming in, and just give him the space, because we want to make sure we catch this wave, especially since my AD carry decided he was going to go mid instead. And then this is kind of like how the trading pattern always wants to go. Whoever is getting focused at the start is the person that kind of wants to, scoot back and then just pressure, and the other person kind of, walks forward. So as you can kind of see in these trading patterns, once the snare is down, it unlocks the other person to play aggressively. So we just immediately shield right here, but we don't use our W, and then because Draven walks in and my Twitch can start DPSing, we just polymorph him immediately. you know, throw the glitter lance. And now you can kind of see also the Font of Life is always working in these trades too. So it's giving us, you know, that extra HP. We scoop back, we finish him off, and we just trade 1 for 1 despite the fact that the jungler is actually here. And then after that, you know, since they're just pushing in and their Draven has already died, I know that I can just catch the wave as long as I'm drinking my potions, and we get all this golden EXP all to ourselves because of it. Then after resetting, you know, pretty commonly a lot of people ask me, like, what am I supposed to buy? So as you can see right here, we actually get the full Kindle gem. And the main reason for that is whenever you're playing against all-in lanes, basically the way you lose is if you get 100 ode, right? So we just go for the, you know, extra HP right here, and that way we can just continuously create pressure. Now, one thing that I'm doing right here is a technique called ganking your own lane. So what I want to explain as a concept is a lot of times people will autopilot to their own lane, right? They'll autopilot straight through, and you actually see me going this way, and then I see that the Swain is actually not in lane at all. So what I do is I actually walk through the river. And because I'm walking through the river, I actually have an angle on the enemy AD carry. And I'm here before the support because we could actually see him on a ward right here. And we just W ourselves, which is one of the rare times, by the way, that you use W on yourself. You very rarely want to use this, but because I know I have a numbers advantage and we've traded flash for flash, remember at the earlier stages with our Draven, we're just going to go on him ASAP. We use the E aggressively, and I'm just walking into the brush so that we can see him the entire time in case, you know, Fog of War starts occurring in this scenario. And you can kind of see already, by the way, Font of Life is I healed a decent amount, 157 already. So that's, you know, the equivalency of a health potion already in about 6 to 7 minutes on a champion that doesn't even build HP. So you can kind of see the value of Font of Life right there. Then after that, once the wave is crashed, you kind of see me. I take the brush right here, and I'm just looking for harass whenever I can. So since I know that it's a 2v1 scenario, I'm just getting some chip damage, making some gold, etc. Because, you know, you can't always play like super aggressive against this lane. So I'm just taking any opportunities I can to just make that extra cash and, you know, get an HP lead on them. Because you can kind of see now right here, right? We actually have a, you know, a decent HP lead. Then my teammate pings that he wants to push the wave, so we're just going to auto-attack each of those minions as best we can. The TF ports in right here. We make sure we shield our teammate, polymorph the Twisted Fate, and we actually get out. So despite the fact that, you know, they've committed a ton of resources to there, we do trade some of our summoners out 100%, but not dying to those ganks is really, really important, which is kind of why I suggested to him that he should take the cleanse. So after this reset, you know, we are up 4 kills in our lane. A lot of it is just because of the fact that we're playing aggressive at the right times. And next is kind of the same concept of ganking our own lane. Graves is already in the lane, so I'm just looking for any wards or trying to sneak behind them. I don't get any success in that sense, so, you know, I have my jungler right here. So I know even if they jump on me, it's going to be pretty hard for them to kill me in any way, shape, or form. So I'm kind of like pushing through here, trying to pull them in. So we use our shield, we use our polymorph immediately onto the Draven now that I've effectively pulled them in. We put our Q through them so they're just slowed the whole time, and that guarantees us a whole nother 2 kills. This is why, like, the using your Q at max range and pulling people into it is going to give you a lot of dividends powers, just because that extra slow gives us so much extra space for our scenario. Then we just go for 2 plates, we take our reset, and now we finished our Sightstone. But I go bottom right here just because of the fact that we have a lot of vision right now, and my mid laner is backed, so I didn't feel like I could get any wards down, because I know that a lot of people I teach, you know, I say you pretty much just always want to get wards down mid, but we have plenty of vision in the spots that I care about right now, so I'm prioritizing pressuring my lane a little bit more. And as you can see, since I'm pretty comfortable with, you know, them being able to jump on, you know, jump in or whatever, I just play aggressively. There's a TF port right here, and we actually just are able to deflect it because of a concept I like to call leveraging, which is just you have summoners so you can pull people into scenarios and then force them to fight. After that, you know, it's just kind of kite backwards, make sure we stay out of range of the Swain ultimate, and just keep feeding shields to my teammate. You know, polymorph him here right under the turret, and we just score actually a 2v3 kill and actually ace them across the map. The most important things really when it comes to these kinds of scenarios, though, is as follows. So you can kind of see the TF starts moving down here right now. I start scooting back a little bit. And I get gold carded immediately. So as I get gold carded though, I'm polymorphing the Twisted Fate, just so that the Twisted Fate can't throw out any more spells, and so that my my Twitch can start dumping damage into him immediately. So you always want to make sure that we're getting our polymorphs on players ASAP. So I get gold carded right here, and I just want to flash as soon as possible to get away from all the damage. Now, there's a lot of extra spells coming at me, so what I do is I just opt into using my ult immediately, just so that I can keep my HP high enough that I can still play in range to help my teammate. A lot of times you do kind of want to just save your ultimate for your AD carry, but sometimes it's also okay for you to use it as long as you use that HP effectively. So you see right here, I'm scooting back right now. We're starting to use our health potions. I'm tanking the minions, and we're just going to use our W on our teammate, which is one of those rare times where we're going to do it. And this is also why I like Shurelius, because if I had Shurelius, I wouldn't have to W him, because I want to make sure he catches up to the Draven and finishes him off. After that, you know, it's just mostly, you see me, I'm actually moving in and out and weaving in some autos. I'm in range now to Glitter Lance again. So we're actually making good use of our HP, and then he flashes in, and we just get him with that next round of polymorphs, and we guarantee that kill too. So, like, a lot of this laning phase is mostly just about, you know, playing aggressive at the right times, leveraging your HP really, really well to bait the enemy players in, and then, you know, absorbing all of that damage and then going to max range. So that's kind of how we always want to see a lot of our Lulu fighting, is you're absorbing as much damage as possible, and then you're kind of pulling back after you've absorbed the adequate amounts of damage, and then you're just throwing shields on teammates at max range. That's kind of what we're looking for pretty much every single time. Okay, so next is we're going to move into just some team fights, you know, some team fight breakdowns, keeping it simple, short, and sweet. So we're going to be talking about how we're supposed to position in team fights, what our skills are supposed to look like, and how to really get the maximum amount of value out of our character over and over again. So as you can see right here, we're in a position where we're fighting for mid a little bit, we're walking back and forth, and our Shaco actually gets jumped on. Now, this is one of those scenarios where we actually get the engage and we score a kill pretty much immediately. So a lot of this is about polymorphing players that are in front of you and making sure you have a good position where it's hard for you to die afterwards. So as you can see right here, this is pretty much what I would call like the no-go zone. So we polymorph right here, and Riven comes in, and we immediately use our exhaust on her since our polymorph is down. Now, as you can see right here, I'm over this wall just throwing spells and reinforcing all of my teammates to make sure that they don't die. That way I can still reach them, but I'm not all the way in here so that, you know, people who are flanking or whatever can kill me. So as you can see right here, we Lulu ult him immediately, making sure he doesn't die. You know, make sure no dots kill him. Then we're coming back. Our spells are coming back off cooldown. We Glitter Lance through there. We're polymorphing the Riven. We're shielding anyone that's taking extra damage, and we keep pretty much everyone alive because of it. So a lot of that is just making sure that we're not walking in too deep and making sure that we are shielding and healing people. So this is kind of the positioning that I want like a lot of people to emulate, which is the back and forth, I call it. So as you can see, right, when my spells are kind of on cooldown, if I don't have like cooldowns that I really care about, I'm kind of scooting back a little bit. You see how like I'm scooting back and repositioning so that there's always players between me and my opponents. And then when my spells start coming back off cooldown, you can kind of see, oh, spells are coming off cooldown. I need to start moving again. Boom, we get another polymorph, and then guess what we do again? We start scooting back again. And you're just kind of going in and out. It's a lot of it's like a flow of a river a lot of the time. So if you've ever played like Soraka, right, you get the bonus movement speed when we're approaching your teammates or whatever, and so you're healing, running out, healing, running out. That's kind of the same way we want to see pretty much all of our enchanters, is we're kind of running in, putting our cooldowns down, and then especially at the early stages, because you know you don't have that much CDR, we want to make sure that we're just pulling back out and then shielding and scooting back in when it's up again. So next what we're going to have is a little bit of a different kind of a team fight, which is going to be not as great as the one before, right? So we're not going to get nearly the same level engage. And actually what's going to happen is our teammate is going to go in, we're going to shield him and use our ult immediately, and he's going to actually die. But the important thing is really recognizing when it's a good time to be shielding your teammates and when you're supposed to Lulu ult. So in the first fight, right, we didn't use Lulu ult nearly as early. But for this one, we're going to actually use our Lulu ult much earlier. So we shield our teammate, and since we see Katarina ultimate going off, we just Lulu ult immediately. Plus, on top of that, it applies slows to everyone. So you can kind of see right here, the Katarina is actually really slowed the entire time. And it makes it hard for her to get out of that scenario. And so you can kind of see right here, player is jumping on me. I'm making sure I'm taking all of the damage. We get that polymorph off of him. And what we're going to do is we're just sitting in a spot where we have terrain. So remember that concept I told you beforehand, which is called leveraging. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll stand in certain spots because I know that I won't die because I have summoners to use. So right here, as you can see in this scenario, I'm standing next to the terrain because I know, oh, if they go on me, I can flash over the terrain. So that's kind of what's going on in these kinds of positional stuff. So I'm walking back and forth trying to help our teammate. He uses most of his jumps on me, and so I just flash over the terrain, and it's an easy way out for me. This is really important, and it's why you should play against walls a lot of the times, just because of the fact that we want to make sure that we're using that terrain advantage to just get the heck out of there in a lot of team fights. It's a pretty common mistake I see a lot of people make, which is that they tend to have flash up, but they're only flashing after people jump on them rather than flashing to avoid like being engaged on or just repositioning in a team fight. And then next, the final team fight is just going to be baiting yourself. So, you know, sometimes Lulu's actually a pretty tanky champion, especially in the early stages when you got like the Kindle Gem, Lulu Ultimate, etc. So what I'm going to show you here is just how to know when to play aggressively. So I actually had like a student ask me, you know, what was up with this fight, what was going through your head, etc. When you want to play aggressively on Lulu, what you usually do is you kind of check off your list what can kill me. So as you can see right there after I've paused it, the hook is actually down. So in most cases, I would tell you in this scenario, okay, if I get kicked into the enemy team, I could die, and if I get hooked, I could be in trouble too. So because of the fact the hook is down, it actually allows me to play really aggressively. You see me walking up, I'm auto-attacking a lot, shielding some of the damage. We use the Lulu ultimate to stop the lantern afterwards, and we already see people coming down here too, so I know I'm being reinforced with other players, and that's how I knew I could play aggressively in this scenario, so that I could set up my teammates for success and just CC them down, burn them across the lane, and then score all of those kills. So a lot of times whenever you want to maybe go really aggressively on your Lulu, you know, you want to set up your teammates that are coming in pretty soon. It's really just about fact checking, you know, what can kill me. Once you land on what can kill you and understand what you can and can't go in on, then it's a lot easier for you to, you know, look for those engages. So that one was just, oh, hook is down, so I'm really fine. I know I'm not going to die, so because of that, I was able to move forward and then, you know, bait myself out, tank a bunch of damage, and then set up my teammates for success. I think we have enough time, by the way, to do one more. So let's see here. Do you want to do the Lulu Caitlyn or the Draven Lulu? We've got time for one more game. So
let's take the Lulu Caitlyn, please.
Lulu Caitlyn? Alrighty. Lulu Caitlyn. Like you're ordering at a fast food restaurant. So this lane, actually, we're going to be starting at a disadvantage, right? So you see us, we come into lane. They actually were able to get, you know, access to the wave. But one thing to note is really paying attention to your opponent's skills. So as you can see in this laning phase, Morgana goes pool level 1. So because Morgana goes full level 1, I know that I need to fight for the wave. So as you can see right here, I'm actually kind of ignoring both of the players, and we're utilizing that Q that I was talking about for push. So you see me, I've queued the minion wave, I've guaranteed us push, and we actually missed a minion because they denied it. But even though that happens, it's totally fine. Another thing to note too is actually a pretty common mistake that I maybe didn't write down is people are afraid to lose HP. If you actually watch a lot of my laning phases, I almost always use a potion between the first and second wave just because of the fact that I'm always trading HP down. So you can kind of see right here, I was down to trade HP just so that we're not stuck under the turret the entire time. And then after that, we're kind of chilling in the minion wave because, you know, Morgana has binding, so we want to make sure we're not getting binded or anything like that. And then anytime, as you can see right here, anytime that the Morgana uses binding and misses, we just walk up. You know, I ping on my way, I walk up, and I'm just looking for pressure. And we actually were able to deny the cannon because of that. You saw me walking up, I blocked that spell, and we're in good shape in that sense. And then you can see right here, also the Ivern is coming down, so we do need to be careful after after this trade right here. And we're gonna play really aggressively just to trade some HP down and, you know, get everyone poked. After that, we see the jungler coming down, so we use our W right here. We shield our teammate, and he actually ends up dying because he doesn't end up flashing at all. So despite the fact that, despite the fact that we actually saw him coming or whatever, our AD carry actually died. So this is going to be a laning phase where you actually have a good start, but your AD carry kind of ends you. He dies to a jungle gank he has no business dying to because he doesn't use his flash, and we're going to navigate kind of how to play it, even though we have a death in the laning phase. So you can kind of see right here, I actually stayed, caught the wave, got that golden EXP, really important for us to do. And the wave will eventually start pushing away from us, but I know that I can get there before it's in a really bad spot. So I knew that it was fine for me to just catch that wave, get that extra gold, and then we're just going to run back to lane. A pretty common thing I actually see is a lot of times when your AD carry dies, some supports will actually just channel back without catching the wave. And that actually puts you at a pretty big disadvantage EXP-wise. And honestly, if you do a good job last hitting, then you'll actually have a lot of extra gold. So you can kind of see right here, I already have 200 extra gold in my inventory. And the reason why I skipped the pink is because I just didn't feel like we could defend the pink very well, so I just didn't bother putting any resources into it. So this is one of those times where using our W is the correct thing to do. So if you actually want me to explain why I use W in these situations, is basically there's no minion wave for them right now, so I know that the trade is going to go well no matter what. And so I just want to get my AD carry in range as fast as possible to hit them. Because I'm probably not going to be in range to use Polymorph on either of them within the time frame. So we just use our W right there, and we just take that big trade. After that, go ahead.
Sorry, in that scenario, what do you think about Wing yourself and then Eing one of the other players and queuing through them so you get a slow on them so the Caitlyn catches up so both of you can do damage?
It costs a lot more mana for starters, and actually about the damage is about the same. Because the main thing to note too is Caitlyn moves, Caitlyn moving in. If I slow them down, the likelihood that my Caitlyn actually catches up is kind of on the lower end of things. So you could have done that as a secondary play. It's not unreasonable. Hard for me to fully know which one is better. But yeah, you could have W'd yourself. Yeah, that's not unreasonable. W, you E, and then you Q across. One drawback you could run into is if you E and then you Q and she black shields it, then your trade is terrible. That is one of the problems you could run into. So that was one of the main reasons why I also just powered up my Caitlyn, because I know, auto attacks are guaranteed power versus if they black shield your stuff, then it's not nearly as good. And you can just see right here. Another thing to note too is just juking in general. So one thing I want people to understand is that when the reason why having a minion wave is an advantage is it's only an advantage if you actually play through it. So like for example right here, so you see how I have these range minions right here, and my the Morgana is running at me. You see how I'm walking into the range minion, so it's way harder for him to hit me with the binding. Like a lot of these minions, this minion right here actually could have blocked it if I was standing right here. So that's also why an important skill for people to develop is challenging. Use your actual minion wave to actually fight back on people. Because a lot of times what'll happen is the enemy Morgana or Thresh or Blitzcrank or whatever will start walking up. And a lot of times what I'll see people do is they'll walk away from their minion wave. And that's where like your problems start happening, is when you start walking away from your minion wave. So as you can see right here, we're just hitting him as much as possible. I'm saving my E right now because my E doesn't kill the AD carry and I don't have enough mana for everything. So we're just chilling right now. Plus I also have the option to flash E and kill him. Main thing that's really important though is whenever your AD carry gets focused is to make sure you just don't give too much ground. So you see here I give Glitter Lance. He gets binded. You see me walk up. I'm shielding him. You kind of see how I'm like spacing them out. I'm not letting them get in and hit him at all. And if they are, see how like both of us are hitting him at this time. We use our exhaust. I'm just getting as much auto attacks as I possibly can. And right now I'm conserving my mana because I want to make sure that I have enough mana to fight back if I need to. So that's why I didn't dump the E on the Jinx at the end of that trade. And that's also why I don't shield right here, because I have 2 health potions running. So I know for the most part I'm kind of chilling right now. We're going to use our E right here and just not Glitter Lance because we got the mana flow stack. This is what happens when you start running pretty low on mana though, is you got to make sure that you're not being careless with some of your spells. Your Q is only 55 damage right now, so unless you're able to actually merge it with auto attacks, I'm not really walking up and doing any of that. Fortunately for us, because we have the push, you know, the pressure in the laning phase, I'm able to access all these fruits, and now all of a sudden we're back in lane and we're back in the game. So we're going to be able to actually play incredibly aggressive in this lane. So you see right here, the jungler is coming over. We're going to shield our teammate. And as you can see right here, I'm blocking the snare from your teammate. Now, this is actually a skill set that a lot of people struggle with a lot of the time, is that you need to make sure that you kind of understand what champions you're playing against and what they do. So as you can see right here, the jungle comes in with the gank, right? And actually a really good binding by Morgana. So you see right here, I'm scooting back, Morgana, good binding, I black shield, and he black shields my polymorph too. So this Morgana plays this play like pretty well. So the most important thing in these kinds of scenarios is splitting up the damage. This is a mistake a lot of people really struggle with when it comes to deflecting ganks, is that we want damage on everybody, right? It's harder for them to go through both of your health bars than it is to go through one of them. So make it so that it's tough. So you see right here, I'm just literally body blocking, not auto attacking, not anything. We're body blocking all of that. We're auto attacking here. And then Flash E is basically instant and impossible to react to. So I know that I have enough damage here. Boom, we just Flash E and finish him off too. Then after that, we can just push it into the turret. And because we've killed the enemy players, we know we can walk up and zone the enemy AD carry away from the wave, get some extra plates, push in that next wave, and take our reset afterwards. So that's how kind of we deflect ganks a lot of times, and make sure that we're absorbing all that extra CC for our teammates. That way, it's just way harder for them to score kills on us, right? And then next, we'll grab a Kindle Gem. And in this scenario, you see me actually walk middle, because we want to just get vision down around the dragon area, and I want to reinforce my teammate. You see me right here, though. I'm also just making sure that it's hard for the Morgana to score a kill on my teammate. He actually black shields my polymorph, which is well played by him. But we break the black shield, and because we break the black shield, I'm just going to, Q through again, and we're just really pounding them in. Use the polymorph so my teammate can catch up. We E again, Q across, and we score another kill on the enemy lane opponents. And that pretty much concludes kind of how we want to play Lulu against champions like Morgana. Dodging them skill shots, make sure we're spreading out that damage, and making sure that we're getting those auto attacks in if anyone is focusing our teammate. That pretty much concludes it. Do you have any other questions or things that you're curious about Lulu before we close it out?
Yeah, and there is a mechanic on Maokai. I don't know if you know, if you W somebody that's out of range of a W, and then you flash in the direction, and you flash into the range of W, then the W instantly goes off.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you know if there's anything like that on Lulu too? So, for example, you E somebody and then flash?
Oh, yeah, maybe you could do something like that. I've never tried that before. That sounds very interesting. Alright, cool. Then, yeah, that pretty much concludes our Lulu one. Thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it a lot, and that's about it.